Hey guys, Waterfowler41 here, and in today's video we're going to be installing some Krazy House Customs midship mud flaps. Midship, what does that mean? That means that these are not going to install on the rear wheels, not going to install on the front wheels, they're going to install midway. So up underneath on the chassis there's a custom bracket that comes in the kit. We're going to install that bracket up against the chassis, and then the mud flap slips in there, and it's got a removable spring clip so that you can remove them when you need to. But what this is going to do is add some additional protection from road spray or salt spray or really any sort of sand or anything from off-roading from hitting the rear suspension components. Those aluminum shocks in the rear are going to take a beating, particularly from road salt in the Midwest, so these midship mud flaps should provide a little bit more protection. So what comes in the kit? You get a mud flap here. So this is a custom 3D printed mud flap that KHC makes specifically for their bracket. And then you get a bracket as well as the necessary hardware. This little guy is so that you can mount these bolts through this bracket into the chassis. We are going to need to drill 3 holes. I think you can get away with drilling just 2, but I'll show you where you got to drill all 3 holes. But it should be a very simple install. As far as tools, obviously a drill bit. Get yourself some step bits. That's going to be super helpful for drilling through the chassis, a marker, and some tape. But like I said, bracket and then a custom mud flap, and then these are removable. So once you put the bracket on, you leave that installed, and then you could use this spring clip to attach the mud flap into the actual bracket, which is a pretty slick idea. So let's get up underneath the truck. I'll show you where you install these things, and then we'll close this one out. It should be a pretty simple project. All right, so once you're up underneath the truck, go ahead and grab the proper bracket. So I'm on the driver's side right now, and you're looking for the front body mount that is just underneath the driver's side door handle. On the passenger side, obviously the passenger side door handle. What you're gonna be doing is taking your bracket from the KHC kit, and it's gonna be mounting towards the back of this body mount bucket. So we're gonna drill 2 holes in the chassis here that'll correspond with these 2 holes, and then 1 hole up top that'll go through the little thin metal here on the bucket to hold everything in place. So essentially the bracket itself is gonna mount just like that. So what we're gonna do to make things easier is take some blue painter's tape, put it there, put some here so we can mark our holes with a marker, and then we could do we could pop little holes in the middle and get our pilots drilled and get these things knocked out. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we have our holes marked there. We basically just took the bracket, laid it up into place, and then marked our holes. Now, one thing I did do is I used the little bracket here as a spacer on a flat edge, and I wanted to make sure that the bracket is about 1/4 inch up. The reason being is you want to make sure that this little bracket here for the bolts that go behind can reach to those holes. And I found that if you mount the bracket flat with the bottom of the chassis, there's not enough length. It ends up putting the holes down here. So you need to raise the bracket up just a bit so that you got enough room on this little arm here to clear and get to the back of these once you drill those holes. So now that we have these guys good to go, we're just gonna take a hole punch here. We're gonna find the center, and then we're just gonna pop that a few times. And then what we'll do is we'll get these pilot holes drilled, and then this is where having a step bit is super helpful. So once we get the pilot holes drilled, having a step bit, we'll be able to zip right through here. Right, so we got our pilot holes drilled, and I went ahead and already step bitted this one. I just gotta ream the edges of it. But we're gonna go ahead and drill these. And I wanted to show you how beneficial it is to have a step bit. Now these don't cost a lot of money. Obviously you could spend a ton of money on the high dollar ones, but I think this kit was 15 bucks and it gave me 3 step bits. But really all we're trying to do is just drill the hole big enough to fit these screws. So we'll drill out, I think ultimately it goes to this step here. But once you get that pilot hole drilled, once you get that one drilled and you fly through here, you see it basically cuts through the chassis just like butter. So we gotta go one more step. But if you're gonna tackle this project, I would definitely recommend investing in these step bits. I'll leave a link to these guys down in the description. I think these are Ryobi. You don't need anything complicated. It's really not that thick a steel here. But once we get all these holes drilled, leave the tape there, and then what you could do, because we need to put some paint on the inside so it doesn't rust, you could leave the tape there, and it basically acts as your masking to make sure that the paint only goes in the hole and not all around. All right, so we got our pilot holes drilled, we got our pilot holes painted. Now all we need to do is install the main bracket that the mud flap itself mounts to. We see our holes line up perfectly. Now, this is a bit of a juggling act, but this guy essentially slides in behind here, and what you do is you line it up with the holes. Now this is a 2-hand job, so I'm not gonna be able to do this with the camera in the way here, but essentially what you wanna do is line up this guy with those holes, get at least the top one threaded, so then you could feed the second bolt through the square piece right into that final hole right in there. All right, so now that we got our bracket bolted in there, you can see that little tab here. Again, it's just a juggling act of lining this guy up there. Don't do what I did. I was trying to do this and with one hand, and I ended up dropping this guy. Had to use a magnet. That's fine. Magnet back through here. I was able to pull it back out. But anyway, this bracket stays on the truck at all times now that it's installed. And then this is your mud flap. All you do is just slide it in here. The first time you install this guy, it's a bit of a tight fit because the hole is drilled perfectly just to fit the spring clip. But this pops all the way through. And once it's through, you just take the clip on the other end, and there you go. Now, one thing folks will say is, well, how durable are these guys? Let's back up a little bit. If I were to hit, let's say, a curb or a rock or something like that, or if I plant this guy up on rocks, what's going to happen to the mud flap? Well, it's super flexible. So anyway, let's get the truck out of the garage, take a look at these guys in daylight, and then close this one. All right, so we're out in daylight here. This is a look at the KHC mud flaps. They stick about 1.5 inches to 2 inches above the ground, but they're tucked far in there. So if you're planning on not running mud flaps and just running a midship, this is the kit for you. So I will leave a link, if there is one, to these guys down in the description below. If not, I'll just leave a direct link to Krazy House Customs website, and you can take a look at these guys. Reach out to Lewis and tell him Waterfowler41 sent you. Anyways, that is how you install the KHC midship mud flaps. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.